part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
How's it going, everybody? This is Ben Billman, the host of the Full 40 College Basketball Podcast. I'll be coming to you weekly with the latest news and notes in college basketball. We'll be talking about which teams are rising, which teams are falling, and any other news or headlines that are dominating the world of college basketball, all the way until March Madness.
Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
What's good, breakers? That sound means it's time for Cavs on the Break NBA podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. I'm your host, Chase Smith, and with me, he's the NBA writer for HoopsWire.com. He's our Cavs Insider National NBA writer, Sam Amico. Sam, it's good to talk to you, buddy. How you been?
I've been doing well. It's great to talk to you again, Chase. It's been a little bit.
You've been doing well. The Cavs have been doing well. I just feel like maybe if we aren't friends, Sam, the Cavs might just win the finals. I don't know.
We can arrange that. Wouldn't take much.
All right. Also with us, he's sports at Fox 8, host of Sabol Brothers on the Baseline, right here in the Press Play Podcast Network. The one, the only John Sabol. John, fresh off interviewing Omar Vizquel. My dude, how was that conversation?
Well, you got to go and listen to it.
It's available now. It's
available
Baseline
now, right here, wherever you listen to podcasts. Omar was great, phenomenal. Scott and I had a blast talking baseball and Cleveland and state of baseball now, what he's doing now, in a plethora of other topics. So he was great. Good guy. That
is awesome. Any leads on next episode for Sabol Brothers? Let's give you guys a little plug here, man.
Yes, we've got we got a former Cavalier coming up.
Okay.
It's been in talks with, and a former Indians player as well, and a former Browns player. We're trying to nail, a little trifecta right there of each team.
I love it. Yeah.
Trying to nail them down here. But yeah, no, if we can get all three of these guys, boy, it's going to be great.
Well, that is exciting. I cannot wait. You guys always pull some awesome talent, man. I mean, looking at the roster there, it's a pretty impressive, incredible. Has there been a favorite, looking back episode so far? Because it's been going on for 3 years or so, right?
Yeah, it's it's good. We're entering year 3 this summer.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I don't know, from Sean Kemp was probably one of our favorite ones that we did.
Yeah.
Joe Thomas was great. Jim Tressel was nice. Archie Griffin, Jim Nance.
That's my number one, I think.
Yeah. Craig Elo, Mark Price. I'm trying to think of Ted Ginn Jr. we had on before the Ohio State Michigan game this past year. We had his dad on it at one point too. We had Campy Russell on a couple weeks ago talking Cavs, and then, we had the Guardians assistant GM, Matt Foreman, on as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a long list of people.
Impressive.
Media members. Sam Amico, I don't know if you know him.
I've been pushing my agent to get me on.
He is coming on right before the trade deadline, so that will be in the works as well. But no, it's cool. Jays, there's a vast array of topics there. I think one of the coolest episodes we did that my brother organized was the failed Cleveland sports dome projects that we did almost a year ago.
Interesting. Yeah.
But it's very interesting because the Browns are trying to get a new stadium or renovate their new ones, but we had a lot of older guys on there that were governors and stuff. That it was cool.
Yeah. And then the whole
documentary style, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Richfield Coliseum stuff too.
Yeah. The Richfield Coliseum floor.
Put you guys on the map.
Mm-hmm. That was one of our first ones. And, and then I did a feature story for Fox 8 with that.
You did.
So, I mean, Joe Thomas was he was one of our all-time favorite ones too.
Yeah. Baker's agent.
Baker, that's right. Yeah, Jack Mills was on there. Baker, I still talk to on a weekly basis.
I'm sure he is happy to let you know how successful he's doing in Tampa.
Yeah, and it's funny because Baker and I switched spots because I was living in Tampa before moving back to Cleveland, and he was there. So no, he was great. We had the Czar was on with us too, Mike Fratello.
Yeah. Coach. So
Tom
all
Hamilton,
that to say, if you're not subscribing to Sabol Brothers on the Baseline, go check yourself in subscribe Sabol Brothers on the Baseline. Just type in Sabol in the search bar and it'll come up.
Yeah, do it. We appreciate everyone's listener viewership because there's a lot of fun little topics that you're not going to get anywhere else with former players.
Love it, love it, love it. Well, hey,
Hey, real quick.
Yeah.
It just reminded me when you guys said Baker Mayfield, listen to this. I was in Panera today in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio.
I'm listening.
And there's a guy in there with his hood up. And I walked by and I was like, man, that guy looks like Baker Mayfield. And then I went to the little coffee stand and he walked over past me. He was texting somebody, walked on the phone, and then texting somebody, walked right past me at the coffee bar. I looked, I'm like, man, that guy really looks like Baker Mayfield. Then I went and sat down, never thought of another thing of it. I started updating the website. And the woman, they yell out your name, said, I order for Baker. And he went up and got it and left. And I'm like, why would
No
Baker? And I
way.
thought, wait a minute, they're playing in Detroit. I wouldn't put it past Baker to come hang out in Northeast Ohio.
Oh,
I don't.
What people can't see, Sabol immediately reached to pick up his phone. Immediately.
Yeah, I hate to burst.
Was Baker at Panera in Cuyahoga Falls today?
No, he was not. I hate to burst your bubble. Baker had sold his townhome back in the
This
summer.
is hilarious.
I think he lived on the west side, and it was not in Cleveland, so he has no ties to come back here anymore because my buddy who covers the Tampa Bay Lightning tweeted a picture of Baker.
Oh my gosh. This is
and
recording,
Emily.
by the way. I just want you to know whatever you're saying is going in the pod. So before we go any further, This is tea on the break right here. All right, here we go.
Yeah, my buddy who covers the Tampa Bay Lightning, who he and I would cover the Lightning when my 9 years there, was he's at the game right now. Actually, here's the picture of them.
Baker's at Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
I think it's all a ruse. I think
Oh
he's
my gosh.
out in Cuyahoga Falls.
I mean, I guess in theory,
you think
Sam,
Baker Mayfield really eats at Panera though? I doubt it.
Well, the Baker that was a quarterback for the Browns probably did.
well, there were other establishments that he frequented.
Cookies. Okay.
So for those of you who
Anyway.
don't know, before we record, this is what our conversations are like. Before and after every CAVS on the break episode, we're talking rumors, we're talking inside info, we're talking, hey, here's what I've heard, here's what someone texted me, here's what a barber's son who's done whatever is doing. This is what these conversations are like, and I'm so pumped that some part of that got onto the break. That's incredible. It's incredible stuff right there.
Well, I should just tweet it out. Baker Mayfield's at Panera in Cuyahoga Falls. Who cares? Right or wrong, so what?
He could maybe in theory he flew in and flew back. I don't know why he'd fly to Tampa to.
Can I do
Panera.
one more Baker thing?
Panera's not that good anymore.
I'm not going to tell the story as to why I'm blocked by a prominent Cleveland media member about Baker Mayfield. I'll save that for another time. But I Jeremy and I used to host Orange is Orange together, and I think it was the season after Baker's rookie year, when he came back and just looked a little out of shape. What year was that after his rookie year?
2019.
Do you know who started why is Baker look a little? Do you know who was the first person to
Jeremy.
comment on that? What?
Was it Jeremy?
No.
Chase.
This guy.
Really? Wow.
This guy. I know it's hard to say who started it, but no one else was mentioning anything before we talked about it as Orange is Oranger, and then it got picked up and became a thing.
So it was accurate.
Yep. Jeremy gave me a hard time. I said, no, dude, it is something is he does not look in shape. Now John's racking his brain. Well, you can't see as John cocked his head and is thinking timeline. We'll go back and do timestamps after the episode. But yeah.
Are we going to talk about the CAVS?
We are going to talk about the CAVS because they are playing incredibly well. CAVS are okay. Let's talk about the state of the team. Yeah, thank you, Sam, for bringing us back. That might have been the longest tangent I've ever had on any show about any sports team. That was a lot of fun. So hey, here's the state of the team. The CAVS are fourth in the East, and stop me if you've heard this before. 2 games behind Philly, with Celtics number 1, Bucks number 2. Very 2023-ish. All of a sudden, we find ourselves in the middle of January, and it seems like everything has come back into shape. Things have righted what seemed to be wrong. Cavs are 8-2 in the last 10 games on a 6-game win streak. They found a nice little stride and a nice little rhythm with Garland and Mobley still out, at least for another couple weeks for Garland. And the team is riding off the backs of Donovan Mitchell and Jared Allen, making me eat my words. Jared Allen, who is playing like a all NBA center. Jared Allen playing out of his mind. Sam, how good is it to see this Cavs team playing this well?
Yeah, I mean, everybody, it's obviously, as you said, Mitchell and Allen are leading the way, but just to see how cohesive they've been with everybody contributing in different ways. Obviously, Mitchell's leading them, scoring. Jared Allen 10 straight double doubles now. But it's really been the guys around them who have stepped up, whether they're not scoring or whether they're scoring or rebounding or just playing defense or making the right play. It's been a very inspirational run that they've had here without Garland and Mobley.
Well, what I find very interesting, guys, is that Jared Allen, who had been criticized by all three of us in the Knicks playoff series last spring, we needed to see a tougher Jared Allen. We needed one to have an edge. We needed one to be more dominant in every facet of his game. And so far, I mean, we've seen a little bit of a change in Jared Allen, and he's playing like an all-star, which is great to see. Great to see a little turnaround in him. And I can't help but wonder, Sam, that you're seeing him thrive without Evan Mobley on the floor. You're seeing that edge a little bit without having another, a big guy in there. It really stretches the floor for him a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean that's a fair comment. He's been a lot better without Evan Mobley. Now there's been times where he's been very good with Evan Mobley as well. So,
Sure.
Maybe this is something that he can capture for when Mobley comes back. And, this is only going to create more opportunities for Evan and really everybody else when Jared's like this. And the nice thing about Jared Allen is when he's productive, when he's scoring 23 points, he still never dominates the basketball. He does it always within the flow of the game. He's never, the offense never has to change because of him. He's just a guy who's going to get his baskets. He shoots a high field goal percentage within the flow of the offense or putbacks or things like that. So it's really not. And the one thing about Jared Allen that we all know is it's not a big deal for him if he scores or not. He's more about doing the little things, rebounding, altering shots, that kind of stuff. But the points are an added bonus when you're missing your top or two of your top three scorers in Mobley and Garland.
Yeah, he's a very selfless player. He doesn't get wrapped up into that. And you talk to him, you see his personality. He's a very quiet, introverted guy. And I think that's the big thing people, I think, unfairly criticize him for because you don't have that like grit, toughness on the floor. You're starting to see it a little bit more. It's bad to characterize someone like that, but I think some people have. But he's a team first player, Jared Allen is,
Yes.
and his defense is something that doesn't get enough credit for, and very likable player in the locker room, and he's just got to keep this going as well as everyone else. It's just going to be interesting though when everyone comes back healthy, in a few weeks.
Well, that was going to be my next topic of conversation. What I've loved seeing over these last couple of weeks is just the growth and the pops of the role players. Every game, maybe a different role player is having, whether it's a career high or some type of confidence building game. Sam, are any of those developments something that's long-term, that have any of these players really played into a playoff rotation? Is that something that we can build on, or is it just thanks for your service now? Once the starters are back, we'll get back to we will find, I guess, our normal rotation because they haven't really had a lot of time to play together. The quote-unquote starters.
No, yeah, I think. Well, you look at somebody like Sam Merrill, who has come in and proven that, the Cavs went out this summer and they wanted to get more outside shooting. Well, now they have this guy along with Max Strus and George Niang from time to time, and Sam Merrill, who was already on the roster, who's really improved by leaps and bounds. At one point this year, Sam Merrill went to JB Bickerstaff, not kind of like concerned, but he was just like, what more do I need to do? Is there anything more I can do? And JB said, I told him, you know, just be yourself, keep being yourself, because guess what? The 82 game season, something's going to happen. A door is going to open for you along the way somewhere. And guess what? It did. You hate to see injuries and you hate all that stuff, but this has really been uh, kind of a guy taking advantage of an opportunity in Merrill. And the Cavs really, obviously, very heavy analytics team. Well, the data shows that having Sam Merrill on the court benefits you greatly because, and Donovan Mitchell has said this, even when Sam isn't like necessarily getting the ball or hitting shots, the defense has to be aware of him at all times. So
Yeah.
you can't just leave him out there, which is going to create openings for everybody else. So I think there's a guy who's, when everybody comes back, he's going to be in the rotation. I still think Dean Wade's going to play plenty
Mm-hmm.
because of the intangibles that he offers.
Well, and we'll talk
You know,
about him in a moment too.
yeah, sure. And I'd be surprised. I still think Tristan's going to be that first big guy off the bench in terms of, backing up Mobley and Allen, and because we all know what he brings.
Yeah, back to number 13, good old TT. Back on number 13.
Right.
He is back, baby. So John, when you have a player like Sam Merrill, how important is that when it comes to playoff basketball? Like we saw maybe what the Cavs needed last year. Like how important of a role is what Sam Merrill offers?
Well, he's a shooter off the bench, and he's a kid that plays with tremendous amount of confidence, and he lets the game come to him. He rarely makes any mistakes in terms of turning the ball over, and you see the exponential growth in him in a short amount of time. I think we really all got glimpses of who he was during the summer league, and we saw him shoot the hell out of that ball, and he was a deep threat. The problem is with that, when everyone healthy, he just gets logged down on the bench. And you got to credit the Cavs for finding him and developing him like they did with Lamar Stevens to an extent a few years ago, and Dean Wade, and now with uh, um, Porter. So
Yeah.
Craig Porter Jr. And so they've and now Isaiah Mobley as well, and maybe Pete Nance too. I mean, he's still more of a project. Both those are more of a projects, but yeah, playoff basketball is key for him. But I think the rotation, you just brought that up, Chase, and we don't know what the rotation is going to be because everyone's still hurt, or
Right.
Mobley and Garland are still hurt. So we're still premature to talk about it as we record this here in January 18th. So I think once everyone gets back, I don't think you're going to see him hitting the floor much at all, unfortunately.
I,
I think he needs more time. I just don't know how you fit him in
well,
unless you limit the playing time and minutes of Garland a little bit, and of course Donovan too.
John, I agree with you. And like, I love what Sam brings. I mean, we talked to him at the media day, which was super fun. Great kid. Love what I see. Here's why I think more than anything, he won't be getting playoff minutes, like legit playoff rotation. Like he's a liability on defense. Whether it's a size or he's weak, when he's in, the offense switches out on him. And it kind of, from my experience watching, really is a pretty glaring defensive like issue that other teams seek out. And so I think that's why they went out and got Max Strus, is to provide that spacing that Merrill offers. And I think they're going to roll with that in the playoffs. And that's just what I've seen, unless, Sam, you feel like there's something a little different there.
No, I mean, the reality is, in the playoffs, you play probably 8 guys, maybe a ninth guy gets 5 minutes, 7 minutes, something like that. So, I mean, the reality is if everybody's healthy and you're playing 8 guys the majority of the time, then he's going to Sam Merrill, Craig Porter Jr., anybody else that's getting minutes now. If everybody's healthy, he's either going to be playing ahead of Levert or Okoro or Tristan or Dean Wade, and I don't foresee that happening a lot. Now, in situations, they could say, you know what, we need additional outside shooting. We're playing the Miami Heat in the first round. They play a lot of zone. So then you're going to Sam Merrill more often. But, the one thing I will say, and I say this all the time because I've covered the NBA for 117 years, but it's really, there's so much that can happen in the rotation just between now and the playoffs. Maybe he steps up. Maybe he becomes a better defender in these next second half of the season, or at least a defender that you think you're more comfortable with, and then you go in 9 deep, 10 deep in the playoffs. So a
Yeah.
lot of stuff can happen between now and then. And a lot of stuff will, a lot of stuff does, I mean, whoever thought that the Cavs without Darius Garland and Evan Mobley, forget that the Bucks didn't have Giannis Antetokounmpo, but whoever said, yeah, the Cavs are winning that game by 40 points. I
Yeah.
mean, so much stuff that can happen that's unexpected, not
Yeah.
just as for the team, but for the individuals.
Another thing that I've noticed when I want to switch topics here from role players, we gave kind of Jared Allen his praise a little bit. We just skidded right over Spider, Donovan Mitchell, who is just continuing to be the player that we need him to be, but also become very vocal in support of the team on Twitter. And he always has been. He always has been. But I find that interesting, at least in this different lens that I'm reading it through. Sam, you mentioned on HoopsWire, there's a rival, I think you said a Western Conference exec said that he wouldn't be surprised. He won't be surprised if Mitchell re-signs with the Cavs.
Yeah.
Which is a very welcome mid-season change of headline from maybe what we were even talking about on this very podcast a couple months ago, Sam. I mean, that's incredible news.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's, here's the thing. Since OG Anunoby got traded to the Knicks, when they went out and got him from the Raptors, that was kind of their splash. And there's been talk that, the Knicks aren't there. There's no guarantee that the Knicks really want Mitchell. Their fans want him. And the Knicks would love to have him, don't get me wrong, but that's not what they're building towards. If you remember, like when the Cavs, before LeBron came back, a big part of the Cavs in 2013 were building in the hopes that LeBron would be there. And then if not, they would go a different direction. But they wanted to wait and see if LeBron was coming. The Knicks aren't doing that with Mitchell. The Knicks are, here's our team, we're going to put it together, and we're not going to mortgage the farm for anybody right now. That's just where they are. So there's that element to it.
Was this what the other GM was speaking to? Just kind of like that part of it?
Yeah. The other GM was saying, look, first of all, where else Donovan Mitchell, if he were to leave, the philosophy is if he were to leave, he wants to go to the Knicks. He said that it's only the fans and maybe the media who have said he would want to go to Brooklyn. He doesn't want to play for the Nets. If he wanted to leave the Cavs, he would want to play for the Knicks. This is what this GM's saying, period. That's the only person he would want to play for, or the only team that Mitchell would want to play for is the Knicks if he were to leave the Cavs. Well, it doesn't look like that's all going to come together for him. And this GM also said, listen, this guy went out and got Max Strus, recruited George Niang. He was recruiting other guys, other free agents to try to get them to Cleveland. And he said, I don't think Donovan Mitchell is going to want to go take less money anywhere else but the Knicks. He said the Cavs are going to be able to pay him more than anybody.
Yeah.
And it's looking more and more like, he's going to, he said the GM said it, and I agree at this point, it would make more sense for him to stay in Cleveland because, and here's what the GM said, a great line. He said, guess what? As far as I know, New York City and the New York Knicks aren't going anywhere. They're always going to be there. Donovan Mitchell can go play for them at the tail end of his career after he's accomplished some things like, great things, and let the Cavs build around him as opposed to just rushing home to play with the Knicks. He said that's what fans and media want to believe. He said, I don't think that he has that mindset. I don't think he thinks I need to go play for the Knicks right now. He said, I can almost guarantee you he doesn't think that.
Yeah. John,
he said, at some point he might want to, but right now, no, it wouldn't make sense for him to.
John, how are you processing mid-season rumor that our star player could come back.
Yeah, well, Sam and I touched this on the last podcast extensively, and I think it just puts everything to bed for the year. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the trade rumors are going to be all shot down. It's a no topic right now. The Cavs brass are questioning where this is even coming from, and it all really just stemmed from all the injuries, and all of a sudden everything was going to get blown up, and that just clearly didn't happen. So, to Sam's point, and to the rival GM's point, I mean, yeah, Donovan recruited Niang and Strus and it took an active recruitment in this. He bought in. He's embraced the community. He's embraced the team, But I just, even if the Cavs were to, he's not going anywhere until if anything happens at all, it could happen over the summer if they collapse in the playoffs or something catastrophically bad happens. It's just he's not getting dealt during the year. It's just there's no way. The Cavs
it's not
are winning.
Happen during the season.
There's just no way. So, yeah, I mean, I think the playoffs this year will be a telltale sign of what he wants to do. If he wants to re-sign long term, or if he wants to leave, or the Cavs then get that vibe and they can trade him. The thing is, they don't have to trade him now. They don't have to trade him over the summer. They could still trade him next year too. Although, if you do make that decision, it is better to deal him over the summer because you get that team gets a full year of him under your contract.
Regardless of what happens, it's just a nice change of pace to see a mid-season rumor of, the All-NBA player on your team is very highly possibly going to re-sign with the team after rumors of them being gone and away. Welcome change of pace in Cleveland. And, it's, another element that I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, but what other place would he go that has as a good of a young core as we do? Like, there's not going to be like an up-and-coming point guard like Garland or like a ceiling that we've talked about like Mobley. Like, Cleveland is a great basketball spot at this point, right?
Absolutely. I mean, at some point, you've got to be able to overtake the Bucks, Celtics, and Sixers, in a playoff series. Now, there's no saying that they can't this year, because I mean, we saw what happened last year. The Bucks finished the best record in the NBA. Now, granted, they're a different team, but they finished with the best record in the NBA last year and lost the first round. So, I don't think that there's any, there's no LeBron James led Cavs or the old Warriors that are guaranteed for the finals. So a lot can go right. You look 3 seasons ago now, the Atlanta Hawks went all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. Nobody was expecting that. So I think that there's a lot to be said for continuity, and I think Mitchell appreciates that. But what you're saying, Chase, I mean, there are other young teams that have, Minnesota, Oklahoma City, but in Orlando,
Magic.
Those aren't the places that he wants to go. Who was the other one?
I said Magic. I was with you.
Oh, Magic. Yeah.
Dude, we are vibing tonight, Sammy.
I know. Demented minds think alike. So I do. I think that this is the best place for him. I don't think Donovan Mitchell is a guy who wants to leave just to leave or that he's unhappy. I think if the situation came up where it was perfect for him to go to the Knicks and the Knicks really wanted him and were really after him, which they're not. But that's something else to consider in all this. The Knicks aren't like hot on his trail, So I've heard that of all the teams that called the Cavs, the Knicks weren't one of them.
Yeah.
Like, what do you want for him? So I don't think, is he not a Tom Thibodeau guy? I don't know. I will say this about Donovan Mitchell. It could be just a pure coincidence, but since these reports came out that he's not going anywhere this year, he's had his best 2-week stretch of the season.
Well,
that could be a coincidence, but
and I know he's always been supportive on Twitter, but I feel like since that report as well, he's been more like actively like, hey, I just want you guys to know, like, this is where I'm at. And, he's always been supportive, but I just feel like maybe I've been more conscious of it and aware. Hey, I was going to do a segment called The Curious Case of Dean Wade. But I'd rather us just take a break and get to some fan questions because they, I think, segue really well with our Mitchell conversation and could lead into some other interesting conversations. So stick around, Cavs on the break. When we get back, taking fan questions that we got from all over the place, Facebook, Threads, Twitter, the like. Stick around. Sam Amico, John Sabol, Cavs on the break. We'll be right back. Hey Breakers, Chase Smith here. I know you're a huge fan of the Cavs, and let's be honest, probably any professional team in Cleveland you're going to like. And there's no better way to show it by wearing your team colors to the office or around the house. Homage makes the most stylish Cleveland Cavs gear, and it's the most comfortable. And what better time to get yourself a gift than this holiday season? Head on over to the link in our show notes to see what Homage has to offer. They offer a wide range of official NFL, NBA, and MLB licenses, as well as official gear from Nickelodeon and the WB. Yes, that's right. They do more than sports. There's something for everyone over at homage.com. Personally, I have this awesome maroon Cavs hoodie with the gold Cavs lettering over the front, a Garland Mobley NBA Jam style t-shirt, and a super comfy Columbus Clippers t-shirt. I wear these items all the time, especially this new Cavs hoodie. It's warm, it's cozy, and I don't want to take it off. It's the best. It looks great. Check out the link in our show notes and get your Homage gear today.
What's up, everyone? I'm Holly Wetzel.
And I'm Tybus Powell.
And we are your hosts of The Orange is Oranger, a Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. We give you all the dog pound coverage that you'll need to get you through the regular season, hopeful postseason, and I'd say off-season, Tybus, but is there really ever an off-season for this team?
Thankfully for our podcast, Holly, there really never is when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. Don't miss our breakdown of each week's matchup, game recaps, and any and all news out of Berea to feed your Browns appetite. As we know, Holly, dogs gotta eat.
Yes, they do. So hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode of the Orange is Oranger, Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sabol.
And I'm Scott Sabol, and we're hosts of the Sabol Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sabol Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
The R&R podcast going to be rocking and rolling with you because football season is underway. College, Ohio State, the Power Fives, the MAC, the Browns. Michael Regai, are you ready to rock and roll with some football?
Kenny, I've been ready. This is our time of year. This is what R&R is all about. We're going to be with you every week. Kenny just said it. Browns, NFL, Ohio State centric. So you got to stay with us all fall and winter long here on R&R.
That's right. The Regai and Rhoda podcast coming to you here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Subscribe now and don't miss a show.
Hey, I'm Jason.
And I'm Gary, and we love ball cards.
And if you love ball cards too, good news. You just found your new favorite podcast. From breaks to grading.
And from collecting to flipping, join us on the Ball Card Show.
The sports podcast for the sports collector.
All right, we are back, and we posted earlier today that we're going to be recording tonight. This is Thursday, January 18th. After we do fan questions, we'll talk about the slate coming up and who we play next. We have a couple conversations that just continuing our Donovan Mitchell conversation. Aaron Ellington on Threads is pretty passionate that we should trade Mitchell. He says he has a whole book about it, so maybe he could enlighten us about some of his thoughts, which we've talked about ad nauseum. You on and off air about what that would look like. But our boy, former co-host Jeremy and Akram on Facebook asked us this question: would you trade Garland if Mitchell would agree to a max deal? He also said we should trade Mobley on Twitter, which blew my mind. So we'll tackle that in a moment. So his initial question: would you trade Garland if Mitchell would agree to a max deal? I don't know if it's either or. Maybe he's saying if we have a max deal with Mitchell, we can't have a max deal with Garland. I don't really know.
No, I think what Jeremy's saying is if you can get Donovan to re-sign long-term, would you trade Darius Garland?
What would you do, John?
I would like to still see what they can do. We've only had a year and a half, a season and a half of both of them playing. However, there's data that shows they both play better when they're not on the court. And we're seeing it now, and we saw it before. They're buddies, they get along great. So I don't think I don't think that's an issue. Do their style of play complement each other? I don't think it does. But in this fun game, I would do that because what you would do, because this is just for a fun game, right?
Well, the
You're
classic podcast host hypothetical. Classic.
You're gonna get at least one first round draft pick out of Darius Garland, right?
I mean, I would hope at least one.
I would.
I mean,
under that scenario, if I'm getting 2 first round draft picks for Darius Garland, I would do it.
they just got 3 for Siakam, right?
Yeah.
So
So you may get more than that
at least
from DG. So in that aspect of things, yeah, I would do that.
Sam, does that tickle your fancy a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't rush to trade Darius Garland. I wouldn't say, you know what, we've got to get rid of this guy now that we've got Donovan Mitchell locked up. I think a lot of that obviously always depends, as John said, you've had a year and a half. What happens from here? Where does this team go in the playoffs? What does next season look like? I think that you have to consider that. There's a lot to be said. I know this, and I'm with fans when it comes to trades and stuff. I love to see them, and I think it's cool and all that. It really helps the website. But I think there's a lot to be said for continuity in the NBA.
Yeah.
You know, you look at the Denver Nuggets last year, you look at the Miami Heat last year, and you compare the Miami Heat this year. So the question is always right now, the fair question is, you know, are they the type that are going to, is it a combination that's going to lead you to really great things on a consistent basis? I don't think we have that answer yet. I don't think that answer is no. I don't think it's yes, but
yeah.
I mean, based on a year and a half, yeah, Chase, I would explore that possibility.
I think continuity among your top players, because I look at the Celtics, right?
Sure.
Their stability has been in Tatum and Brown, and they've turned the whole roster over multiple times. They're trying to build around those 2 players, but those 2 players have continued to take them to the Eastern Conference Finals for the past, or at least threaten that for the past 6, 7, 8 years, right? Same with the Bucks. You have a core stability that you have in your whatever. So yeah, it's an interesting conversation, and I do want to see what, you know, if our core would be Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, you know, what does that look like? Which I think leads us to another interesting part that he mentioned about trading Mobley, which I think the conversation is, can Allen and Mobley coexist to their maximum skill and ceiling? Because I feel like because I've been saying we should trade Allen since last year, and all of his playing isn't quieting. I think he's just building his stock, and I still think he might, you know. Anyway, I don't want to get people in my DMs, but I think so. The question is, can they coexist in a like supreme way?
Yeah, and we don't know the answer to that. So I wouldn't trade anybody till you find out. Allen and Mobley, I've heard that a lot. I heard it from Brian Windhorst from ESPN, Akron guy who I greatly respect, and I've heard him say, you know, Mobley and Allen and Garland and Mitchell are very repetitive. You're getting similar. Now, I think Allen and Mobley, they're both big, they're both talented, but they both play, you know, they obviously play completely different style. Allen's more of a guy who's, like I explained earlier, is more of a guy who doesn't need the basketball, doesn't care if he has the basketball, whereas Mobley is, while a team player, is going to be, you know, he's a more
run your offense through him.
Right. He's a more skilled player. So I think that you can survive with those 2. I think the bigger question is, you know, Garland and Mitchell, are they the answer long term?
I'm shocked by that. In my brain, I see Mitchell and Garland coexisting before I see Allen and
you know what? That's perfectly fair. I mean,
I agree.
Yeah, I don't think you trade anybody.
Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't trade anybody right now that's a top four, one of your core four guys there. I would certainly not trade any of them.
Sam and Chase, I think that's also predicated on the fact that we need to see Evan Mobley develop in what we all think he's going to be. And that's a a big that could step back and hit the occasional three, but hit that mid-range jumper. His offensive game outside of the rim and the perimeter needs to grow. I had a conversation with Campy Russell about this on my podcast with my brother, and talking about the unfair comparisons that Evan Mobley has had since coming into the league. People compare him to Chris Bosh or Kevin Durant or Kevin Garnett. And Campy was quick to say, listen, like, no, the only people comparing him to those players weren't coaches or some scouts. They were media people. And
it was me.
Well, it wasn't just you. There was a lot of national.
Right, but I'm in that group.
But it was just Chase. And the fact that I'll say we, all of us, media, have put that, not necessarily those three players, to a comp on him so early, so young, but we expected so much so young that it will take time. And Campy's point is, listen, this kid is still so raw, and Campy's right about everything. What he said there was, he's still so raw. He may never get to that point. He may develop in some different way, but you got to let him have time and be that player, be a player. I rebuttal, and I just say, listen, I need this kid to start hitting some shots, hitting jumpers in order to develop his game. He needs to. The game has evolved. The day of a big center in the middle dominating is no longer there unless you're, the Joker. And even Jared Allen, to a certain extent, he was hitting some jumpers the other night when we were at the Bucks game. So I don't know. It's an interesting conversation, but I think before you just jettison Evan Mobley out of here, I think you still need to see what the ceiling is going to be.
Oh, I'm not trading Evan Mobley. I'm fielding offers for Jared Allen yesterday. So I think, but with those expectations, let's not forget he's a third pick in the draft. And so lottery picks brings expectations. They bring a shortened window of development. They bring I want to see what you can do right now. That is part of being a lottery pick, especially a top 3 pick.
Well, he's also 22. Think about that. He's going to turn 23 in June. He's super young.
Right.
And the lottery pick argument that you make, that's us media putting that on him. I mean, I don't know if the Cavaliers or other teams are putting it on him. We're doing that as media and fans. Like, do the Cavs have that pressure on them, Sam? I don't think they do.
I get the sense that they don't at all. I mean, one of the big things they want to do is make sure, he signs that extension too when the time comes. So they're really handling it with kind of kid gloves, because that's what's important to them, is to make sure he's locked in, and then you can continue to push him to develop. I just, real quick, Chase, I only have my only issue, and I don't want to come out sounding negative about Evan Mobley, because that's not where I'm really coming from. My one concern is he was phenomenal, always making the right play when he first came to the Cavs. His first half of his rookie season, I think he's good now. He's not been as good as his first 40 games as an NBA player. And I don't know why that is. I don't know whether somebody told him, you need to start doing this more. You need to start stepping out, shooting more threes. He's just not been as fluid. And he still has nights where it's like, you see, man, that guy's so good. And most nights you see he's pretty good. But when he first came in the league, those first 40 games, I'm like, I thought I saw, and it still could be this way, but those first 40 games, I was like, this is a franchise-changing legend. I don't see that right now. So to me, he's slightly regressed from those first 40 games of his rookie season and has never returned to that level. But we saw it, so that means he could get back. So, I mean, it's not a huge concern. It's just something that I find interesting, and that I'm like, why did he take a step back from those first 40 games? Not a huge step back, but a step back.
You know, it's
So
funny, real quick, Chase, let me jump in here. It's funny you say that, Sam, because if you go back in our podcast from 2 years ago, I remember us three talking about that. And you called it the rookie wall.
Yeah.
And that he's approaching this rookie wall and the teams have adapted. Let's see what he can do and overcome it. I think it's safe to say, Sam, that he hasn't overcome it or has not been able to take that even little step since then.
No.
To
He
your
still
point of
looks like a
progress.
guy
disagree.
stuck on the rookie wall.
I disagree. He almost won Defensive Player of the Year last year. He was second in voting. That's not a rookie wall.
Defensively, there's no doubt about it. Defensively, he's elite. But offensively, he has taken a step back from those first 30 games, for 40 games or whatever. He's not the passer that he was then. He's still a decent passer. He's not as confident in the low post. He's not always making the right play like he was back then. It's not that he's bad. I'm just saying he's not looking to me like a guy who's going to change the course of your franchise right now, whereas he did before.
Well, Sam, I think you brought up a good point. When I've been around the Cavs, and it's not as much as you, but I have noticed them taking extreme care of Mobley, of just making sure that they're not putting all that stress of a franchise legendary player of like it. That is not felt with any of the, like when I've been around the team and the coaches, that's not what I've felt or experienced. And so I think that's a really good point that they are doing their best to take care of him. When Jarrett Allen broke his finger his rookie year, was that the start of the season or the end of the season of Mobley's rookie year?
That was the end of the season because Allen came back. Remember, he came back in the playoffs or play-in game, tried to play in the play-in game.
Oh yeah, against the Hawks.
Yeah.
Garland was out with the broken eye socket. No, that was last year.
That was the second. Yeah, it was the start of last year.
I don't even know.
All kind of blends together. Yeah, Garland got popped against Toronto that first game.
Against the Raptors. Yeah.
Then the Cavs won 8 in a row.
Well, maybe next time Jeremy throws a little napalm bomb in our podcast, he can come on and ask himself.
Yeah, Jeremy,
little turd. Just
yeah,
come in here to have all these hot takes.
He didn't come on the podcast yet. He's dominating it again anyway.
Yeah. All right. Evan Clowers off X said this. JBB has done a great job this year despite his hand being dealt with injuries. And then he asks us, what does Sam and Chase think about Coach Bickerstaff? What does Sam and Chase think? Sam, they want to know what we think.
That's the first.
I know, Evan. I appreciate it, man. Go for it, Sam. What you got? What do you think of Coach?
You can't. I mean, how can you do anything but praise them? They've won 11 of 14 or something along those lines, 6 straight, and you don't have leading scorer number 2, Garland, leading scorer number 3 in Mobley. You don't have the defensive presence of Mobley. I just think you can't complain. I know it. Look, coaches know this. They always take the blame and they get none of the credit when things go right. But I think that he deserves a ton of credit for keeping this thing afloat, and not only keeping them afloat, but they're right where they were last season. They're in 4th place in the Eastern Conference. They're one spot, and really without 2 of their main guys. And then you haven't had Mitchell on and off. You didn't have Jarrett Allen to start the year. You've missed Karis LeVert for some games. There was a stretch where you missed Isaac Okoro for a while. Sam Merrill catches fire, and then you lose him for 3 games or 2 games or whatever. So, I mean, there's just been such a rotation of bodies and injuries and all that stuff, and they've gotten through it. They've had some bad nights, but everybody in the NBA's had some bad nights. So I just think you've got to give credit where credit's due. Yep. And I know a lot of people fans and other media members who aren't in favor of JB or don't look at him real favorably, but I'm just a results-oriented guy, and he's delivering. The team is delivering despite these obstacles and setbacks and all that. They've been very good. And I think you got to credit him a little bit.
I agree. It's been fun to see him with the hand being dealt, leaning into developing these young players who saw success in summer. Like just today, they signed Pete Nance. What was it? 10-day
contract.
10-day contract. Yeah. And I mean, I'm not sure like what the relationship with him and Kobe's like how much input Kobe has in lineups. I'm not sure that, But it's been fun to watch them develop and to cheer on, like, oh, Monty Bates is, he got a couple minutes tonight, or there's Craig Porter Jr., some of these names that we've all like heard about and want to see play and develop. It's been fun to watch them, and some got meaningful minutes. Craig Porter Jr. Last month I think we played the Sixers in Philly right before the in-season tournament, and they got some good kind of like intense minutes there. And so yeah, I would agree for what he has to do right now in middle of January. I think it's been great to see, and I don't think anything will happen until the playoffs, and I think there's a world where I don't want to be him if we have a really bad exit again.
Yeah, and you know what? It's funny. Like a month and a half ago, I think we all kind of thought maybe his seat could turning to be a little
worst
warm,
case scenario. Yeah.
And I think that was valid.
Sure,
I really do. But things turned around, and how he was able to get this team together and buy in with the injuries to Garland and Mobley and consistently win. Granted, the schedule has been garbage, and they're taking advantage of that. And you're supposed to do it, and they're doing it. And everyone seems like they're having fun. So it could not have gone any better after those injuries. And you got to give credit to JB and his staff for doing that for sure.
Yep.
Can I read a question now?
Yes, go for it, Sammy.
Brett Bland on our Facebook page,
okay,
who is a classmate of mine, CVCA, go Royals, asks, who finally got Jared Allen playing aggressive on offense? Give that man a raise and tell him to keep motivating Allen to keep trying to score. Makes the team offense run so much better, which is very true. I mean, Allen has been much more aggressive. I really think that the credit there belongs probably to Jared Allen. I just think that he's taken it upon himself to be more involved, more aggressive, feels more confident. And I think the coaching staff and Jared Allen himself are the reasons he's done that.
Yeah, I don't think we would see us with Mobley still in the court. And so I think definitely taking advantage of the opportunity he has for sure, which again just goes right back to Jared Allen. Yeah, cool. Thanks, Brett. Hey, thanks everybody. We also had one more final one on Twitter from Azuma Films. I don't know who that is. It's just an account with seemed like a brand or company name or whatever, but asking observations made with Garland and Mobley out, which I feel like has been kind of our whole conversation throughout the whole pod in some way, shape, or form. So Azuma, if you want more opinion, just send us a tweet or a thread or whatever they're called, and we'll make sure to highlight. John, you're a professional, man. You were already trying to get us to the scheduling, talking about the last couple games, what we got coming up. Slate 13, the Cavs have 3 games. We've already won 2 of them against the Bulls on Monday and the Bucks on Wednesday. Our next game is Saturday, tomorrow, because you're probably listening to this on a Friday or Saturday, January 20th at State Farm Arena versus the Hawks, who are almost in every other trade rumor at this point for whatever reason. Whoever it is, I feel like the Hawks are popular.
DeJounte Murray.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
So they got that going for them. And then on 14 next week, slate 14, we are away. We got 3 away games. Well, starting with the Hawks. We are in Orlando Monday, January 22nd against the Magic, and then a 2-game stint in Milwaukee versus the Bucks in Milwaukee, January 24th and 26th. Monday, Wednesday, Friday next week for the slate 14.
All on the road.
All on the road. Yeah, which all difficult road games. Magic,
yeah,
great young squad, and then the 2 games against the Bucks. I'd like to
He'll
see
be
us
out for revenge. The Bucks will be out for revenge.
Oh yeah, they don't want to lose to 40 to anyone.
Yeah, let's have Giannis play this time, please. I mean, that was that was
beat him by 40. Yeah,
that was not fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it was fun, but I need to see Giannis play in one of these games.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the Cavs can take one in Milwaukee. I think they can. I think they're going to try. I think they want to see what they got.
I think the Cavs need to go 1-3 on this trip. They can't lose all 4.
Otherwise,
it'll be a very different podcast next week. We'll have to walk Chase off the ledge.
Sam, that West Coast trip they had about a month or so ago, you and I said the best way that they could go if they went like 2-2 or whatever.
Yeah.
And would they go 2-2 or 1-3? I forget now.
I can't remember.
Something like that. And I don't have the schedule in front of me. I closed it. But anyways, we nailed that, whatever it was. But you need to have, I agree, you need to have that kind of record going through there for sure.
Well, I don't think they'll lose to Atlanta. And I think they can take one in Milwaukee.
Okay. Well,
and I wouldn't be shocked if they beat Orlando. Hey, guys, I'm all the way back on the Cavs, man, if you haven't noticed.
Wow, yeah. This is a lot different than November.
Let's go.
You know, I mean, they're going to hit a dip at some point here.
Never.
It's just the way the NBA season goes. But the good news is they come back home after this trip and they got a game against Detroit. So, you know, they might as well just put another notch in the win column right now. Skip that game. I mean,
now they're going to lose. Now they're going to lose because you said that.
You know, anytime that Detroit beats somebody, the rare times Detroit beats somebody, the opponent always says, well, they're NBA players. I look at Detroit and I'm like, I'm not so sure they are.
Oof.
There's Cade Cunningham, okay? But, I mean,
Bogan
beyond that,
Bonbatovic, too.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, those guys are professionals, but, you know.
All right, no comment. Hey, well, that does it for this episode of Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Thank you all so much for downloading and listening. Shouts to the Press Play Podcast Network for making this possible. Shouts to Sam and John for just doing an awesome job tonight. You guys were great. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Cavs on the Break. We always follow back. Follow Sam on Twitter at Amico Hoops. Java's works and writings at hoopswire.com and at Wire Hoops. Follow John on Twitter at John_Sabol. Get him at Fox 8 and Sabol Brothers on the Baseline podcast. Guys, Junkyard Dog Award. Who gets it tonight? Not me. Let me just tell you that much.
I agree. Not
yes.
I vote for John.
I vote for myself too. Let's just take it.
Sabol gets it.
Because
Junkyard Dog Award. John Sabol, man.
Got my specs on here, guys. My contacts are taking
looking good. Sabol, final thoughts.
You know what? This is a fun team, guys. Without the stars, with Mobley and Garland, and they're exceeding expectations and proving everyone wrong, including all three of us. I want to keep this rolling, and I want to continue to see some good basketball.
Love it. Sam, what are you thinking, man? Final thoughts?
Yeah, same thing. I just think that this team really, given everything and all the injuries and all the constant turnover of the lineup, really has overachieved, really put out a team that, you know, the fans can be proud of and that the organization can be proud of in the way that they've not only won games, but just the way that they're always battling and never die, you know, never say die type of deal. So I think that's very impressive. The other thing I want to add real quick is Scott Moskovitz asked a question on Facebook. I at least wanted to give him a shout out because he talks, you know, he interacts with me way more than either of the two of you. And he's just a really cool Facebook follower of mine, and always comments, always likes my posts, and I'm very grateful for him. He asked, you know, what do we see the rotation being? Garland, Mobley return, and we kind of answered that, but I at least wanted to give him a shout out because it's rare. Not even my mom gives me as much love on my website and Facebook and all that. So I'm always thrilled to interact with him and as well as any of the readers.
Well,
shouts. There you have it.
Shouts to Scott. Thank you. I'm surprised Jeremy didn't win the Junkyard Dog Award for.
Yeah, that's what he was going for. We all know it.
I think so. No, John, you deserved it. Hey, when the Cavs go 4-0 in this road trip, I want the Junkyard Dog Award. I'm going to say that.
Just mail it to you. Yeah,
mail it to me.
Right.
Mike Breen, take us out.
Congratulations, Cleveland. Your decades-long wait is finally over. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.